actually said to me, because I had said to the midwife, she sounds like a little kitten, thinking that's really cute. But he came in to me the next day after she was born and said, oh, the midwife mentioned that you said that she sounds a bit kitteny. And I said, yeah, I did. And he says, oh, I just want to do a blood test, just see what that's all about. He rang at home on a Saturday and he said, my husband answered the phone and he says, oh, when are you coming in to see me? And my husband said, why? We're coming in next week. And he says, oh, we've got the results back from the blood test for Claudia and just want to see you about it. He goes, is there any problem? And he says, they're not very good. And I said, oh, and my husband said, oh, what's wrong? He goes, well, she has this syndrome called Cri du Chat. It's very rare. And my husband said, what's that? What does that mean? And he said, oh, her development will be delayed. And he said, well, what do you mean development delayed? And he said, oh, mentally retarded. And that's when he just, that was terrible.
A doctor helps people.
She probably would need to be institutionalised, probably would never walk or talk, in other words, a vegetable.
And would very likely have severe physical defects of all horrible nature. Because their history to that date was the more severe cases, it was a pretty black picture that it painted.
The paediatrician virtually wiped his hands of it. He really gave us no prognosis at all.
None at all.
The only people giving me information were people who just went to a medical dictionary, which is exactly what I did, and read exactly what I did, and that was the only uninformed information we were given, until we finally went to a geneticist.
For Cri du Chat, that is diagnosed, first of all, one would need to suspect the diagnosis, and then a chromosome test would be requested. The abnormality that's found in Cri du Chat is a small piece missing on the end of chromosome 5. The time that Cri du Chat is first recognised in most people is when they're little babies, and it's because of the typical cry. So Cri du Chat meaning cat-like cry. In fact, a little baby will have a cry like a kitten, a very high-pitched sort of mewing cry. And in fact, these babies don't look different in a very obvious way. Might appear, in fact, quite normal to the parents, perhaps a little bit small.
It was confirmed probably about 3 days after he was born. So it was diagnosed pretty much at birth. The doctor knew there was something not quite right because he had cleft palate and he didn't breathe properly. Apart from those things, there were a few other little things he wasn't happy with.
So it's not something that would be easy for a GP to recognise. A paediatrician should recognise it at birth, and a geneticist will recognise it.
He said your son is profound, and you've got mild, you've got moderate, you've got severe, your son is profound. Like, it was really bad. He told me he wouldn't even smile. Then I had this confusion of everybody telling me, you won't be able to do it, give you marble. But he went off those books, and which at the time was really devastating. But as time went on, it was a good thing that he did that to me, because everything was such a highlight, whatever he would do. But it was really wrong. I was really annoyed. They told me that he would be like a vegetable. And my problem is that he runs so fast. I get scared I'm going to lose him. He's so quick. Rides a bike. He's a better swimmer than even his own age.
And one of the difficulties is that there's a great deal of variation. There's a range within that condition. And the thing that people mostly are interested in is my child going to walk? Is my child going to talk? Is my child going to be able to go to normal school? It's very, very hard to give an exact prediction of how a particular child is going to do.
You just thought he'd be like a little vegetable, wouldn't be able to do much. His life expectancy wasn't very good. Didn't think he had much sight or hearing, but his eyesight's very good. Well, the surgeon is quite surprised, but he has shown them.
Most children, in fact, have a moderate size deletion, and within that group, we really can't pick how a particular child's going to go.
But when the doctor told us about this Cri du Chat syndrome, he had this sheet of paper because he didn't know much about it, and what was on that sheet of paper was just awful. That he never walk, never talk, and severely intellectual disability, and all these horrible things. But he didn't know any more about it though. He had no information himself. He can walk, he can ride a bike, he can play cricket.
This is actually a picture of chromosomes, a little diagrammatic picture of chromosomes, and this is a picture of chromosome 5. Chromosomes have little bands on them when you look at them under the microscope. And I've just indicated that the band that we're talking about that's usually missing in Cri du Chat is the very end band at the top. This band we call 1,5. And that's been broken up into 3 different regions now. We call it 1,5.1, which is this little region here, 1,5.2, which is the grey region, and 1,5.3, which is the very end.
We had the chromosome test done, and we had to wait, I think it was about eight weeks for that. Ronan was diagnosed at 3.5 months. Yeah. And the person who told us was the child psychiatrist, because the doctor couldn't fit me in for an appointment for 10 days. Once we finally did make it to the doctor's surgery, he turned around and told us that he wouldn't talk, and he wouldn't walk, and he wouldn't do anything like that, so just take him home and love him.
And they're basically now working out that the cat-like cry seems to be related to having a bit missing about here, just in the middle there, between these 2 top bits. People who have just the very end missing up there, in fact, may not have a cat-like cry and may just have some mild speech delay without particular developmental delay. But people who are missing this middle portion here, going down this way, usually have what we generally know as the full Cri du Chat syndrome, with at least moderate developmental delay, the cat-like cry, and perhaps the facial features that we recognise as typical, particularly in the slightly older children.
When he was first diagnosed at about 8 weeks, we were told that he would probably be severely mentally retarded, as they all are. Wouldn't read, wouldn't be able to speak, and would end up in a home. Unfortunately, they didn't have any literature, of course, to give us.
In the population, the general population, there's a spectrum of IQ for people. Most people are going to be in the middle, and there's going to be a few people at the top end in terms of IQ achievement and a few people at the bottom end in terms of IQ achievement. So we call that a bell curve, where the 2 sides tail off and most people are in the middle. Now Cri du Chat's like that too, so most people with Cri du Chat are going to have an IQ in the moderately retarded range. So that's the middle of their bell curve. And some people are going to do much better. In fact, there are people with Cri du Chat who have IQ in the normal range, and there are people with Cri du Chat who have more severe IQ problems. So the actual IQ distribution in Cri du Chat, I guess, is somewhat like the normal population, but it's just shifted downwards quite significantly. But there is variation.
My situation, I found out when she was 3.5, but I'm glad that I didn't know any earlier, because some of the things they, when I read about some of the things how they've described Cri du Chat, it's if I knew before she was born, I would have been petrified about facing the whole prospect of the syndrome. Mm-hmm. But because I had her and she was already there, after 3.5 years, I don't know any differently.
People have feelings. Oh, well, the worst day of my life. It was normal. There was a baby born 2 houses away. He rolled over before she did. He laughed before she did. Everything was fine until about 6 months, and then the clinic sister started noticing that he couldn't hold things properly.
Well, it was a shock, It was actually like a smack in the face. I didn't think anything was wrong. I thought they were just being overly cautious about everything, because she looked, even though she was little, she just looked like, any other baby. And she was happy and she was smiling, and this young intern actually came and told me that she had this genetic problem and explained it to me very quickly, and that I can't even remember, but I just remember I was in almost shock, I think, and very upset. and just sort of wanted to run away and hide.
Felt like a sledgehammer in the guts, really. I was winded, I couldn't breathe. I went up on the roof and cried for a while, and then raged a bit, which is my next usual reaction. It's akin to being told that a relative or a loved one has been killed in a car crash. There's nothing you can do about it, and you just have to swallow it whole. And you have to sort of start rearranging all your expectations and hopes. And
it just changed the way you thought and the way you felt about her, and it was sort of like the child that you thought you had was gone and you had this other child now.
I
was the strong one.
Yeah,
one of us had to be the strong one. I was the strong one.
And
Doug was a mess for about 4 years, really. I was quite depressed for about 2 weeks after we found out. And then after that, because Doug was so bad, I had to sort of hold it all together. I still have to believe that she can do this, and she's still like this, and treat her as normally as possible. And I think that sort of helped along the way, helped me sort of get over that.
My normal solution to problems is to get very angry, and my behaviour was very poor and very irrational and emotional for a long, long time. And, I just fed in on myself and was starting to self-destruct. In fact, I think I was quite insane for a while. I can fix most things, I couldn't fix this. So it's only, I think, only in the past 2 years have I really sort of started to return to a good, sound outlook. I mean, I've got a kid. Instead, I thought I had a problem. That's a very comforting thing to sort of feel
normal,
average and normal, even though you might like to think of yourself as superb and excellent.
There was no time for me to grieve. With Murray, he didn't cope with it that well. His grieving process was a bit longer than what mine was. A few years, about 4 years. There's been a lot of problems in our marriage because of this, and we have split up. I can't blame him for not being able to cope, but it would have been a lot easier on me if he would have put himself together a bit earlier.
It's taken quite a long time, and now I'm sort of starting to see Brandon Moore as a really beautiful child and just accepting him for what he is.
I like it when people help me.
The work we do here is actually helping parents to help their children to learn in the areas of gross motor, fine motor, receptive and expressive languages, and personal social skills. As research showed that early intervention was in fact the most useful tool in helping children to learn. The services the Early Education Clinic provide have an early childhood educator, special needs trained, a paediatric physiotherapist, speech pathologist, and we also have developed little preparation for preschool classes. We look for the things that the children can do, and we try and build on those strengths, and we look for the things that they're having trouble with and say, well, let's work along and helping to get that skill up to the best level that these little ones can. Even developing at that early stage, early language skills, the looking, the listening, getting eye contact, getting the little one interested in looking at a toy, moving the toy. Children learn through play. And what we're doing in early intervention is demonstrating play that we've thought about and that we know is going to be useful for the child. We've found that we see the babies fortnightly while they're little till the age of 18 months. They often will then, from about that time, go into the little preparation for preschool. Every child's progress is very individual because kids come to us with lots of varying levels of abilities. There's no guarantee that in fact that little one will go to a normal school and go into a normal class. Now of course that's the ideal, that's what we're all wanting.
School is fun. School is fun.
We have the attitude that all children can learn, and we believe in that, and we consistently apply that skill, and that they have skills to offer and are valued members of our community. The way we approach the curriculum, of course, would be different. Our instructional technology would be different as well. We have much smaller classes and we have a lot more human resources in the school.
I would like for them to have gone to special class in a normal school. But then the little thing it would worry me, and it still worries me, is the safety part, the gates. That's the only problem I have with him, the fear, that fear that he'd run out because he has no sense of danger.
We have 2 classes here for children with disabilities, intellectual disabilities, and they are integrated into the mainstream organisation of the school in as many ways as we can think of. But I guess the main value is allowing all of our children to see that people are different, and that just because you have a difference, there's something about you that may be a little different, doesn't make you any less of a person. And so all of the children and the parents are constantly presented with that on a daily basis, and that's a benefit to all of us.
She's in a mainstream school in a special class called an IO class for moderately handicapped children. There are between 6 and 9 children in the class with a teacher and a teacher's aide, an integration teacher. That is in the government system. And
she's integrated into the mainstream classrooms about 3 hours a week. With the academics, she's trying very hard. She's doing okay. And with the numbers, the same. She's beginning to get the concept and put 2 and 2 together. And with the reading, she recognises, she's got a wonderful memory. She remembers words and things. To begin with, I use signs for the first 6 or 7 words in the first reading books. I use signs for each of the words. Just look. You show me, where's the word? What does it say?
No.
Good girl. She will give you the sign back, but she'll also try and give you the word. Her receptive language is very, very good. She understands. I think she understands everything we say to her. Whether she chooses to act on that is a different story, but you see, she's just really settled in.
It's our school policy to try and incorporate those sorts of students into a regular curriculum so that they feel valued and are an important part of our school. I think it's very good for both the students who are integrated into the school and the students who are already at school, because it's important that students have compassion and interest in all people, and I think they learn a lot from having students with special needs.
Well, academically, she's sort of hanging in there, would you say?
Yeah.
Yeah, hanging in there. Like, she's reading now and she can write, even though it's very messy, and that's one of her downsides. She's talking a lot better. You know, she's doing 9-word sentences and very confident about getting up in the classroom.
It was always, the desire that she would be with other normal, average kids.
Very good for a person to have a normal environment, the same as they will encounter in the world. An aide assists in the classroom in any way. She can help with other children besides Honey, so that she's a benefit to the whole class. But she can help Honey to do things that might be a little bit difficult for her, so she doesn't feel any sense of frustration.
Paul's in Year 6 at Everett Primary, and Everett Primary is just our local primary school. He's been at Everett Primary for 5 years in an integration program. The integration program means that he's in a mainstream class and he has a 0.5 aide with him. Half a day, 5 days a week, yes. Socially, it's excellent. I feel he behaves more like a normal kid. He copies the kid. He's a great mimicker. He copies everything he sees. So he copies the way they play sport, the way they speak, the way they behave, good and bad. And next year, he's going to high school. So we looked at a couple of high schools. One was really positive about it, the other one was really negative about it. But the one we chose, we're going to try it anyway. No matter what class he's in, he won't be able to do their work. Put him in with the bright kids, because no matter where he is, he's got to do his own work. You can put all sorts of programs into a special school that no matter how you try to make the socialisation normal in a special school, you can't. Academically, well, he knows his colours, he can count up to 10 in English and French, he can speak a few French things, but he absorbs so much information. He has so much knowledge of what the kids are learning. He may not know how to read or write, but he just knows.
We were worried about kindergarten when he first started because we weren't properly toilet trained at that stage. So what we did, we bought a watch that went off every 2 hours. First of all, it started off every 1 hour to take him to the toilet. And we only had 2 accidents of all of kindergarten. Academically, average, certainly not bottom of the class. Handwriting skills let him down a lot in that he can't keep up in that regard. But in reading, he just got an award this year for second highest reader of books in the class, did 131 books or something.
I like playing games.
You have to become not only a doctor, but you have to become a speech therapist, an OT and a physio, as well as being a mother.
Cody, like I said, he's unknown with your translocation, with other problems too. He seems to get one problem after another. They fix one problem and something else arises. He can give you a cheeky grin and you know he's up to something. Yeah. Don't you? But doctors, when we used to take him to Westmead, you knew where he was going and start mucking up as soon as you got to the door. All the therapy team's very pleased with him because he is going ahead leaps and bounds to quicker to what they expected. Because he's got determination and the willpower, yeah, to do it. If he wants something, he's determined to get it. Yes, isn't it?
I think that you gradually accept it, and that she's not going to be normal. And once you can start doing something about it, like you can start taking her to physiotherapy or any sort of therapy, helps you accept that, because then you're actually being part of the process.
Before it used to be, oh, let's get him up and walking, and let's get him doing this, and let's get him doing that, and now I feel as though I've taken a back seat and said Brennan's actually going to do things for himself, and when he's ready to do it.
We did early intervention, we did special education. Our paediatrician at that time thought it was a bit of a coup that he had Brendan. Unfortunately, when we suggested we do speech therapy, he didn't think that would help because they're not meant to talk. When we said we would do a special education, he thought, well, they were sort of interfering, and that doesn't really help either. And yet we tended to benefit from everything that we had. And I mean, at 7 years old, he can read, he can write, he speaks. So we changed paediatricians. And we're quite happy now with who we've got at the moment.
I want to be a family. He's big and strong. Sometimes he loves me and he plays with me. Sometimes he hates me. Sometimes he goes me rescue.
Oh, they get on really well. I mean, Shannon gets frustrated with her, don't you, Shan? Sometimes, because she's trying to draw and she'll come and pull the papers away. When they play well together too.
My youngest grandson is the same age as Cody, in which they sort of sit there with one another and play. He follows Marius. That's how he's learnt quickly, I think, too, with the integrating with the other children.
Most of the support came from family and friends, really, the useful support. The other people were doing their jobs, but they couldn't. When you went home, you then had to deal with these things. And family support on both sides has been, 100%.
Yeah. I think it just keeps me in touch with another aspect of like people's normal lives, because it's more a sort of a sedate, it's more a sedate thing and an emotional thing. Someone who needs support on a fairly basic level that you would give your immediate family. Because Marianne's needs are fairly basic, but if you take them away, Mary will deteriorate markedly.
Some people don't really take it that well. I always try to show people how how good he really is and what he can do and things like that. And it's, I think I've relaxed about that now too. Some people are accepting and some people aren't.
My teacher is Mrs. Stewart.
Well, Honey has a speech and language delay, which means that her speech and language are developing normally, they're just developing slower. She's 6 years and 5 months now, so the problems that she's having at the moment, probably the biggest problem she's got at the moment, is that her speech is often unintelligible. Honey used sign language when she was younger because she didn't have enough verbal language to communicate, so that she didn't become frustrated. Really was used with Honey to give her a form of communicating until she had enough verbal language to take over. The transition from using mostly sign language to mostly verbal and now totally verbal has been terrific, the way that she's done that. Honey used it until she was about 4 years old, and then she just didn't need it anymore, so she just stopped. It's designed to improve the communication. Honey has always been able to understand a lot more than she's been able to say. Look at the rash. Good girl. And that's our last page. The child's not talking at all will need to have speech therapy for communication skills. They might be verbal communication skills or non-verbal communication skills. But some children don't develop their verbal language and they have to rely entirely on a different form of communication, which might be signing or a communication board. And those children need ongoing speech therapy because their communication needs will keep changing. Also to make sure that their language is functional. They need functional language for whatever stage of their life that they are up to. They need to be able to communicate those needs at that time.
A couple of signs. He does food and drink. Biscuit. You want to do biscuit? You show us biscuit. You want to show us biscuit? That's drink. Yeah, we do drink first. Now you show me biscuit. Show Mummy biscuit. You're not going to do biscuit? How do you do biscuit? Go on, you show me biscuit. That's his favourite sign, biscuit. Oh, and cake.
Yes.
We do cake.
Right.
What else do we do, Bradley? That's about it for his signs. He hasn't got a great deal. Because he tends to do the same ones over and over.
He knows a lot of signs, yeah? How do you do little boy? How do you do the sign for boy? Boy. How do you do the sign for man? Man, because he's got a beard, hasn't he? Oh, yeah. How do you do the lady? Oh, soft lady. It's a lady. We've used the sign because he was frustrated. He was frustrated because he knew what he wanted, but he couldn't just say it. And the speech therapist, which we go, suggested we start doing signing, and that upset me because I thought if we do signing, that's where we're going to stay. What else can you do? He's not talking. He understands what he wants. Now, we've got 3 years of signing, but as he signs, I want him to attempt to say the word as well. He's starting to copy me or copy a commercial in talking now.
She makes herself understood really well. If you don't get the idea of what she wants to say, she can get quite frustrated and aggressive towards you and really pull at you. And her speech, the words that she does say, have become quite clear in the last 6 months. And seems to be pronouncing the sounds much better. Makyla has a real fascination with spiders. Won't go near them, but just loves them. And big spider, or big bully, seems to be a couple of her favourite phrases. A big spider, yes. It's scary.
Oh yes, she can communicate with any child or any teacher in the school. They understand what she wants.
Looking finished? We do some more? We finished.
No.
More. Okay.
Just facial gestures, whole body gestures, pointing, all sorts of different ways. She tends to use a natural sign, a natural gesture.
Need help?
Oh,
I think his speech has improved incredibly because of the exposure to the language and the swearing.
You said I am in the camera, right? You said
When he was 3, we started sign language classes. Then he talked. He didn't need to use the signing. So while he was 3 and maybe 4, a few signs helped. But then the language just took over. When he's 3, I'm saying he's saying about 70 or 80 words. 2 words like bye Dad, Dad's bike, Paul's towel. Nearly 5. 3-word phrases say go away Mum, come here Kate, goodbye Aaron. He can count to 5 and he can name all the primary colours.
She's only still vocalising. She's not talking or saying Mama or Dad or anything like that. That's the frustrating thing. She wants to, but she can't. Walking and all that, that's coming very nice. She understands a lot actually. Sometimes I don't give her enough credit.
I hate wearing dresses!
Terrified of the vacuum cleaner, noises, dustbusters and brooms, a little bit frightened of, and certain noise frequencies can scare him a bit.
Hair pulling, I think, is probably our biggest behavioural problem, though that hasn't happened for 6 weeks or so now. Screaming is a really big problem with Michaela. Michaela can scream for 2 hours without stopping. It's pretty high-pitched and quite annoying. Inappropriate behaviour with other children, pulling their hair, poking at them, taking their food off them. Hands in the pants is also quite a problem when we're out shopping at people's places. Though at school, it's the only place that she doesn't put her hands down her pants. She has got a habit of leaning over and sinking her top teeth into the top of people's heads when she wants attention.
Yeah, wakes up constantly through the night. Just sleep walks a bit.
She has flapping, and she has always liked pinching and scratching the skin and other people's skin.
There's an affinity with water which seems to cross a lot of the kids, always touching and tasting water.
Wriggly baby.
Restless, yeah.
And she was irritable, wasn't she? As a baby, she was.
It didn't take much to set her off, or she would just go off, didn't you?
And she still is a little bit irritable, I think,
The worst things about her, she's not very tidy, but that's only a social thing.
She doesn't sleep much, never slept much.
Bit hyperactive.
Bit hyperactive. A little bit unfocused, or a lot unfocused in things.
It's like the little girl with the little curl. When she's good, she's very, very good, and when she's bad, she's horrid.
Well, her behaviour when she's not getting some attention can be quite unruly.
Unpredictable behaviour. I think unusual situations, like having strangers in the house.
She used to rock herself to sleep.
She did go through a stage of pulling hair of other children. Destructive in playing. She's very destructive in tearing things to pieces.
Anything with a sticker on it of any kind, she'll try and pull the sticker off.
He has what the teacher calls inappropriate responses. If something happens that anyone else would be horrified, disgusted or whatever, he kills himself laughing. And he tends to not mind destroying other people's property, as in toys or something like that, because he likes to see how they work.
I like playing with my Game Boy.
Because he's quite, believe it or not, placid, I can take him a lot of places. Take him shopping, the beach, out in the boat. He goes out in the boat with us and sits there, loves that. Yes, and I take him most places.
He loves breakfast at Tiffany's. He likes hard rock songs. He likes to get up and play the guitar.
He likes children that are a bit older than him too, like an 8-9-year-old boy that can play soccer.
A bit stronger.
He can copy, yeah. When a little girl will come and visit, he treats her like a little girl, like he looks after her, yeah.
He'll cuddle her and kiss her.
He looks after the little girls. Loves hugs. Don't you, Arthur? Big kisses and hugs.
When he knows that something that he does makes us angry, he'll do it again because he
He
gets
wants
the
attention as well, I
You see?
think, and I go, just ignore him. Just ignore him.
Yeah.
We tried that, and then you just got to get up and talk to him because you bring the house down. You can't ignore too long.
Very affectionate. She always wants to hug all the kids at
And
school.
they sort of, maybe...
Some like it and some don't.
Some of them find it very off-putting to be hugged and kissed early in the morning. And they recoil as if, you know, if you were going to bash them.
Wonderful sense of humour, has a hysterical laugh, and a sense of humour that's usually at other people's expense.
She can be a very loving child when she's on her own and she has your undivided attention.
She's always prepared to have a go. Very social, loves being with other children.
He's the most loving child. He'll come up and he'll cuddle you and kiss everyone. In fact, we had to ask her to stop letting him kiss the boys because we were worried that as he got a bit older, this may be a problem and the boys might start to tease him a little bit for it.
Are you going to stay here all day?
Socially, fits in quite well. Got a lot of friends. Got invited to a lot of parties last year and this year. And I think because he has a very warped sense of humour, he fits in very well with the kids because he appreciates most of the jokes that go on. And he likes to sort of do things behind the teachers' backs, I've noticed this year, to amuse the other children. But a lot of the teachers appreciate his sense of humour because it's more adult than the other kids.
You're constantly monitoring progress and trying to find the right path to go down, not knowing where exactly it's going to lead. You can't make detailed plans too far in advance or too detailed a plan. So you're sort of feeling your way. That's the downside in not knowing, is that you can't lay long-term plans. You're either going to be disappointed or you're going to get frustrated. It's much more, I think, much more playing it by ear.
Marianne lives in a home at Daiseville, which is it's administered by the Challenge Foundation. It's close to her own home, and she visits me twice a week. A Thursday and a Sunday we have a day together, which is usually it's a very enjoyable day. Mary benefits greatly from it. And her brother visits her on a Monday. So the lifestyle is a lot better now and it's more secure. And during all those years it was, because of, there was just a lack of services. Marianne attends an activity training program close to the cottage. Marianne enjoys eating. She enjoys music. She enjoys classical music. And she enjoys affection, and she's so affectionate, aren't you, Mary? I love you so much. Such a beautiful girl, aren't you?
Monique's future is probably always with us.
I would like to think that by the time she's around 20, that one of her homes would be available.
Monique herself is becoming more capable. She can dress herself, she can take herself to the toilet. Given the right environment, I think she could be relatively self-sufficient.
Where her food is cooked for her and decisions are made.
I asked one of the people there whether or not they actually know of any of them who live on their own. She said, as far as she knew, there were none who live on their own because they don't have a sense of danger. Which really concerned me. I thought, okay, we've come this far and defied everything else that we're supposed to have done. We're going to live on our own when we get to that stage. He's starting to understand money. He can make his bed when he wants to. We're hoping that in the future he will be able to live on his own.
My friends are Alex and Anna.
What parents want to know is, what's going to happen next year? What's the best way to deal with this particular problem? And that sort of information doesn't come from the medical literature. In fact, the best source of that kind of information is from other parents who have been where you've been a year or two before and have dealt with the system.
We just tried to find as much information as we could, but it's all pretty depressing, what you read. So then luckily I just came across this lady that came here at the centre, and she told me about a little girl that was here with Cri du Chat, and so we thought, we might ring and find out more about it that way. And from there we got onto the support group, and Helen, of course, which made it sort of understand it a bit better. I'm glad somebody knew something about it rather than the doctors.
Professionals are the ones that try and advise you, and yet you're giving them the information, and then you actually know more than what they do, and you've got more research, information, more knowledge. As a Cri du Chat support group, they're way ahead of any professional.
I want to give you some advice.
I don't really know too much about Cri du Chat, and I don't really want to know a lot because I would rather just deal with Georgia as a person and just cope with whatever's happening with her rather than thinking, because if I read too much, I think I'll limit myself. So I just go on a day-to-day basis and
take it step by step.
I'm going to take every day as it comes, and I'll just get help when it does get bad. And as I'm saying, in a way, it was good that they did that to me, because then everything, when he'd pick up something, or when he would hold a bottle, or when he would start smiling, or when he would become alert and look around, they were all the things that I wasn't even expecting, you know. Also see that there is a person inside this body that won't function for him, because that's the way I see Renan. Just take every day as it comes. That's how it is, you know. Just take every day as it comes, don't you think? Yeah, that's very parent, yeah.
It's a wrap.